The trading post in Sonora sat at the edge of civilization, a ramshackle structure of adobe and timber that served as a crossroads to every unsavory enterprise the frontier had to offer. Jack Malory had come for supplies, ammunition, flour, whiskey, not for any of the human livestock that occasionally changed hands in the back rooms. But as he emerged from the main building, a commotion near the livestock pen caught his attention. A man was shouting, his voice thick with drunk satisfaction. "Finest specimen I brought in all season. Look at her. Apache blood runs hot, and she's got the face of a Spanish queen." Jack's jaw tightened. He'd seen enough of the slave trade to know he wanted no part of it. But something made him walk toward the pen, made him look. She was unlike anything he'd ever seen. Tall and graceful, with skin the color of warm honey and eyes so dark they seemed to contain entire universes. Her long black hair fell in waves down her back, and despite the crude clothes she wore, there was an unmistakable nobility in how she held herself. She stood with her chin lifted, her shoulders back, refusing to cower even as a dozen men examined her like livestock. "What's her name?" someone called out. "Calls herself Magdalena," the trader laughed. "Won her off an Apache chief in a dice game. She's 23, strong as an ox, and trained to obedience. Bidding starts at $50. Jack felt something crystalline form in his chest. He looked at the woman, and she looked directly back at him, their eyes meeting across the dusty yard. For just a moment, he saw behind her controlled expression to the terror and defiance underneath. $200, he heard himself say. The crowd went silent. The trader's eyes widened. "Friend, that's more than—" "200, Jack repeated firmly, stepping forward. "Cash!" No one else bid. The ride to Jack's ranch was tense. Magdalena sat in front of him on the horse, her body rigid with fear or rage or both. Jack said nothing, allowing the silence to stretch between them. He knew that whatever he said now would only sound like hollow lies. Actions would have to speak. When they arrived at the ranch, a solid structure nestled in a valley surrounded by juniper and pine, Jack helped her down and led her directly to the main house. "This is your home," he said simply. "There are 3 bedrooms. You can choose whichever one you want. I'll take the one downstairs. There's food in the kitchen, water for bathing, clothes in the storage room, everything you need to be comfortable." Magdalena stared at him with deep suspicion. "Why did you buy me?" "Because you shouldn't have been for sale." "But I was," she said bitterly. "Men will do what men do. You simply paid more for the same thing." Jack met her gaze steadily. "I bought you to set you free. Legally, yes, you're indentured to my household for the time being. But that's a matter of paperwork. Your actual freedom, your choices, your dignity, your body, your future, those have always been yours. I'm simply acknowledging that truth." Something flickered in Magdalena's expression. Doubt, perhaps, or the faintest spark of hope. "You're a liar," she said, "but you're a better liar than most." The first month was a careful dance of trust-building and cautious discovery. Magdalena kept to the house initially, exploring its rooms as if it might contain hidden traps. She tested Jack's promises by deliberately failing at tasks, waiting for punishment that never came. She prepared meals with deliberate mistakes, expecting anger that instead met with quiet requests for her to try again. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, her posture began to change. She stopped flinching when Jack entered the room. She began humming as she worked, Apache songs that carried the weight of memory. She asked questions about the ranch, about the work, about Jack's life. One evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset paint the mountains in shades of amber and crimson, she asked him about his past. "I was married once," he said quietly, "to a woman named Catherine. She was kind, beautiful, everything a man could want. But I was restless, always wanting more, always looking elsewhere. I took her for granted. Then she died giving birth to a son who didn't survive. And I realized too late that what I'd had was worth more than all the gold in the territory." Magdalena was quiet for a long time. "Do you blame yourself?" "Every day," Jack said. "I lost them because I was too blind to see what I already had." "Then why tell me this?" Jack turned to look at her. "Because I need you to understand that I'm not buying companionship or gratitude or anything else from you. I'm learning, finally, how to appreciate what's in front of me. And what's in front of me is a remarkable woman who deserves to know she's valued. By the third month, Magdalena had begun to truly inhabit the ranch. She worked in the garden, coaxing life from the hard desert soil. She rode horses with an ease that suggested she'd been riding since childhood. She laughed, hesitantly at first, then with increasing confidence, at Jack's terrible jokes. It was on an afternoon when they were working together to repair a section of fence that something shifted fundamentally. Jack's hand slipped, and he cut it deeply on a piece of jagged metal. Magdalena gasped and immediately tore fabric from her skirt to bind the wound, her hands moving with efficient care. "It's fine," Jack said, but Magdalena was focused entirely on stopping the bleeding. "You could have died," she said fiercely. "An infection, blood poisoning. The frontier is full of men who died from less." Jack looked at her face, so close to his, filled with genuine fear for his well-being. "Would you care if I did?" he asked softly. Magdalena met his eyes, and her expression was raw and honest. "Yes, God help me. Yes, I would." He kissed her then, gently, asking rather than taking. She kissed him back. 2 months later, they stood before a circuit judge in the nearest town, with the local ranchers and townspeople as witnesses. The judge had raised an eyebrow at the Apache woman marrying a white man, but Jack's reputation was good, and the paperwork was all in order. The marriage was legally binding, but the vows they exchanged were the real commitment. "I promise to honor you," Magdalena said, her voice steady and clear, "to choose you every day, to build this life with you because I want to, not because I'm obligated. I choose you, Jack Malory, with every fiber of my being." Jack's eyes glistened with tears. "I promise to protect what's precious, and you are the most precious thing that has ever entered my life. I promise to see you fully, to appreciate you deeply, and to spend every day earning the right to call you my wife." They kissed as the crowd applauded, and in that moment, something that had begun as a transaction had transformed into something sacred, a partnership built on mutual respect, love earned rather than demanded, and the recognition that the greatest riches aren't purchased with money but with a deliberate choice to see another person's complete humanity. A year later, Magdalena stood in the kitchen of the ranch house, her hands kneading dough for bread. She was pregnant, though still months from delivery. Jack entered, dusty from a day's work, and immediately came to her, placing a gentle hand on her swollen belly. "How do you feel?" he asked, as he did every day. "Happy," she said simply. "Still sometimes angry at what was done to me. Still grieving the family I lost. But fundamentally, deeply happy." Jack kissed her forehead. "I love you." "I know," Magdalena said, turning to face him. "And that's the miracle of it. You don't say it because you've paid for the right. You say it because you mean it. Every single day, you could leave, could take a different woman, could resent being tied to an Apache. But you choose me. That choice, given freely and renewed daily, that's what makes me yours and what makes you mine." That evening, they sat together on the porch as they always did, watching the sun descend beyond the mountains. The ranch was quiet except for the sound of the wind in the trees and the distant call of a hawk. In the months since they'd met, Jack had finally learned what Catherine's death had been trying to teach him. That true wealth wasn't measured in land or cattle or gold, but in the presence of someone who chose to stand beside you, who saw your flaws and loved you anyway, who built a future with you brick by brick, choice by choice. Magdalena had learned something too, that not all men were monsters, that freedom wasn't just the absence of chains or the presence of genuine choice, and that love, when it arrived unexpectedly, could heal wounds deeper than any knife could cut. The cowboy who bought the most beautiful Apache slave had discovered that the greatest treasures can't be purchased. They can only be earned through humility, respected through genuine acknowledgement of another's worth, and kept alive through the daily renewal of love freely given and freely received. In buying her, he'd found his wife. In freeing her, he'd freed himself.